on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about what are Norwegians actually like. And the way we are going to learn about this is not from Norwegians, but from non-Norwegians, people from other countries that have moved to Norway, and how they describe interacting and living with Norwegians. So I have this little discussion here I thought was very, very interesting that would give a lot of insight into Norwegian culture and how Norwegians really behave. So somebody asked non-Norwegians, what are Norwegians like? Would it be fun to know more about how you see us? So a Norwegian was actually asking this question about how do people see us? Please be honest and direct, the way we like it. Also, where are you from and how well do you know Norwegians? Have you ever been to Norway? And if so, what part of Norway? Okay, very interesting. So I'm excited to hear about lots of people's experiences in Norway from after growing up and living in other countries and how they describe living with Norwegians and personality. Follow-up question. Do non-Norwegians see all Norwegians the same? As a Northern Norwegian, I've experienced huge culture differences with people from other parts of the country. That's very interesting. That's actually a very nuanced take. Like Americans from different parts of America are pretty different, but I guess as a whole, Americans act kind of the same way, like in a general American way. But in Norway, there's also the same kind of differences where there's Northern Norway and Southern Norway and all these different regions, and Norwegians probably behave a bit different depending on where you grow up in Norway. That's a very good point. The further south you get in Norway, the more obvious it is. The cliche about Northerners is that they are pretty straightforward. I've heard that Norwegians in general are pretty straightforward and direct. Are Northern Norwegians extra straightforward? That's kind of scary. It's like super direct, even for Norwegians, maybe? Wow, like to make a joke and swear and speak loudly, like to have a drink, they are generally not very religious. Okay. All right, I'm very interested in what some of the people have to say who are non-Norwegians. I have been in Norway for about 27 years. Wow. Wow, that is a long time. So this is good. I'm a male from Kosovo. Where is Kosovo? Where is Kosovo? That is... Oh, wow. Wow, where? The Republic of Kosovo in Southeast Europe. Okay. Wow. Dark skin, dark hair. Norway has changed so much since 1997. At that time, it was not unusual to get attacked by Norwegians simply because you didn't look Norwegian. So this person doesn't look Norwegian. They have darker skin and darker hair, and this person had a terrible time in Norway, unfortunately. Back in 1997, though, 27 years ago, this hasn't happened to me in the past 15 years. Now most are terrified for being labeled a racist. Racism still exists, but not to the same level as it used to. Seems like that's kind of how the entire world is going. Like the entire world, a lot of countries seem to have had a racism problem, and as the internet in modern times have gotten more prevalent and more modern, thankfully, it seems like racism is really, really frowned upon, which is a good thing. Not all Norwegians are the same. There are differences between gender and generations. But in general, Norwegians nowadays are polite and friendly. Okay, so he actually had some pretty dark criticisms about Norway back when he first moved to Norway 27 years ago, but if we're talking about right now, it's very positive. He's saying Norwegians are polite, friendly, well-educated, and funny. Funny once you understand Norwegian humor. I'm guessing Norwegian humor can be a bit direct or sarcastic, maybe? Kind of like how Norwegians are described a bit. Okay. There are some negative traits, which most don't want to mention. Well, the Norwegian who created this question wanted the brutal truth, which I think is good, so let's hear what he has to say. Either because they haven't been in Norway long enough, or don't want to offend anyone. Okay, so this is what he says are the negatives of Norway. Weak family connections. I heard Norwegians can actually like live together as a family, like with your grandparents and stuff. I would have thought it was pretty good family relationships in Norway. Men are made more fun of and looked at kind as the silly gender. This really? People spend too much time alone. Okay. If you don't look Norwegian, you will be treated differently, indirectly. Well, sadly, I think that's true for a lot of the world, not just Norway. Whether it's intentional or not, or subconscious, people definitely treat other people differently when they look differently. Unfortunately, it's kind of the human condition. So maybe that is a criticism of Norway as well. I see some are writing that Norwegians are very direct. That's not completely true. I have met plenty of Norwegians who don't want to offend others or start a conflict, and will beat around the bush. Huh. But, after all these years, I love Norway and the Norwegian culture. It's now in my blood, and I feel at home here. Wow, lenge leve Norge. Wow, that's very nice. Man, that was a very interesting post. I like that it got into some uncomfortable topics, and it was this person's personal experience. And man, I didn't think there was going to be anybody commenting that has been in Norway as long as 27 years. That's amazing. Okay, that's a great perspective. Here's another one. What are Norwegians actually like? The rudest people you will ever meet. Is that a joke? Is that sarcasm? Or if you hold them up to the same standards of your own culture, okay, it's a joke. In all seriousness, I hear people saying that they are rude, that Norwegians are rude, and I even thought this myself when I moved to Norway 17 years ago. But I realized it was just cultural differences. I am not surprised to see that as a recurring theme. Lots of people saying that wherever they grew up, when they moved to Norway, they thought Norwegians were a bit rude, but that's not necessarily the case. In Norwegian culture, it's normal. Norwegians are just direct and serious and take things literally or seriously, and don't have small talk and give each other personal respect. And I really admire a lot of those qualities, honestly. So I think when a lot of people move to Norway, it takes some adjusting, but most people seem to adjust and learn to admire the Norwegian culture as well. Where I come from, people are overly polite and nice to the point where it seems fake or forced. Everyone loves small talk too. I like it. I like that people seem to think Norwegians are very real, very authentic. And I think that's really respectable, actually. The Norwegians are the complete opposite. They know who they are, no BS, they are direct. They don't do small talk. They can be introverted. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because sometimes these qualities are really looked down on in America in particular. As an American, I can really relate to this because Americans will be over polite, talk too much, talk about nothing, give compliments that we don't mean, all this stuff, like lie, not say things that are truthful, and that seems to be almost encouraged in America, to be this big, bombastic show of a person. And in Norway, everyone is just very comfortable. It seems like everyone's just comfortable in their skin in Norway, and Norwegians don't try to be something that they're not. Especially making new friends outside their established friend group. And this is all fine. You just have to adapt and get used to it. It takes time to build friendships. Yeah, and it sounds like friendships in Norway possibly are more meaningful. Like they're a little more difficult to create, and therefore a bit more meaningful. And that's kind of beautiful that In Norway, if you have friends or relationships, you know they are there for you. They are loyal. Like you guys have a history that you have built up a trust, a meaningful relationship. And in America, and I think other countries, relationships can be a bit surface level. And friendships can be a bit surface level, and that's kind of normal. People just want to have a ton of friends instead of a couple really meaningful ones. So there's actually a ton of things here, like what Norwegians are actually like, that I really admire. I really like it. Americans could use it. Additionally, actually, I forgot to mention Northerners. Far north. Oh boy, this is the second time someone is mentioning Northern Norway? Like Northerners in Norway behave differently? Apparently? I didn't know about this. I find them to be totally different breed. In a funny way. Northern Norwegians. They are a bit more in your face, no filters, cursing every second, and shouting about horse cocks now and then? What? I had no idea Northern Norway was a whole thing. Like a whole culture inside of Norway, there's a subculture, Northern Norway. This is very interesting. This is very, very interesting. Spot on. Only place we say hello to strangers or do small talk is when we're on a hike. Yeah, it's very different. Like in America, people will make small talk with you, waiting for the bus, waiting on the elevator. Like it's kind of annoying, honestly. And Americans get very uncomfortable just standing in silence. Americans are very, very bad at being uncomfortable. And that's why I think we talk so much. And yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. Like Norwegians just seem more authentic, more comfortable, basically. I like it. About me. I am from New England, Connecticut. Specifically, I was in a relationship with a Norwegian woman for several years. Okay. Though it has ended, I treasure my time with her. She is now living in Svalbard. Wow. And I visited her there. Okay, so this is an American who is in a relationship with a Norwegian woman. What I think of Norwegians is you are very direct. At times, almost brutally so. That's such a funny observation because it's true, especially for Americans. We're not very direct in America because we're all worried about hurting each other's feelings. Definitely worried about saying the wrong thing. So it's kind of refreshing to hear that there's a whole country of people that are actually honest and maybe brutally honest, but that might be better than being a liar or insincere. Maybe. What Americans might see as kindness, you would see as being dishonest or disloyal. Right. You also don't intrude on other people's feelings, nor do you assume someone wants help unless they ask for it. Wow, this is really interesting. This is fascinating. The perspective of this guy, having dated a Norwegian woman, and obviously he got to know her very well, and got a really, really intimate experience with a Norwegian, that noticing all these interesting things, that Norwegians don't intrude on others' feelings, don't offer or assume help unless someone asks for help. Americans have a lot of trouble asking for help. It's seen as a big weakness. So sometimes we kind of depend on people to offer help. There's such interesting differences. That would be seen as rude. You would never impose yourself on others, waiting to be asked rather than volunteering to solve a problem. Norwegians are very friendly and accepting of other people, but don't come across that way because of this. Okay, so Norwegians don't impose themselves and don't assume that you want help. So that can come across as like kind of closed off and mean. But in reality, Norwegians are very polite and helpful and understanding when you ask for help or something. I think I get it. Independence and hard work are encouraged. You love the outdoors. Nature is part of your collective soul. That's kind of a big difference between the United States and Norway. How big nature is emphasized in Norway, but it makes sense because I've said it before, Norway is insane. Like the nature, the natural beauty, the wonders in Norway are unlike anything in America. So it makes sense that Norwegians are just naturally more in touch with nature and exploring nature. Americans definitely are not known for being the most active or in nature. Some Americans are into it, some. But it's certainly not part of our soul, like you could say for Norwegians. Children are not babied. Wow, that's another big difference that I think is good. Teens are given room to make mistakes and learn from them. You drink a lot. You drink a lot. What are Norwegians actually like? You drink a lot. No, but the other stuff as well. Children are treated with more respect and more responsibility, which I think is really great. Teens are given chances to make mistakes. I think this is great philosophy. I love the Norwegian philosophy of letting children. I reacted to a Norwegian kindergarten a long time ago, and they actually let the children run around outside and explore during school. And it really blew my mind. It really emphasized how different we are. Children and babies and teenagers are really coddled and really protected here in America. Maybe too much. Like, it can be good for you to make mistakes and learn. I like that. You're a gorgeous, complex people, inside and out. Though the timing was wrong for my relationship, I loved learning about Norwegian culture. I was honored to call one of you Min Anna Berman? Min Dyer Bereste? I can't pronounce this. Kareste? Even for the short span of a few years. Wow, so this person had a really sort of touching, nice experience with the Norwegian they were dating. That's interesting. We had some people who lived in Norway for a while and what they thought. We had one person who dated a Norwegian for a while. And so there was a lot of interesting perspectives here that really gave me a great idea of what Norwegians are actually like. I love hearing from people like this who have had real life interactions and living experience in Norway or with Norwegians because, let's face it, Norwegians are very different than Americans. That seems to be the number one thing I've learned so far. Norway and Norwegians are very different than Americans, and I think we could learn a lot from Norwegians. So I really enjoyed learning about what Norwegians are. This is a generalization, of course, but it's really cool to learn about. So I enjoyed this quite a bit. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment, perhaps with what you think Norwegians are actually like compared to the rest of the world. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Norway and Norwegian culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.